3 of 4 scheduled Philly skateboard series, and we didn't have this prior to 3 years ago, actually 2 years ago. Attracted 79 skateboarding competitors. And so we have this beautiful skateboard park right up here on the Parkway, and that was actually one of the sites that we used for one of our competitions. We have what we call the Be Outside Teen Program, where we engage teens to come outside. They had opportunities to kayak, hike, bike, and zip line. And these are our young people that live right in our communities that are getting these opportunities, just being a part of Parks and Recreation. So I could probably continue.
I think it gives you a flavor.
It does give a flavor. And
that's sort of the.
I'll tell you what, until I jumped into it, I wasn't fully aware of the full gamut of programs. So programs that are in the queue, programs that are on a drawing board, programs that are on a chalkboard or whiteboard that you would like to do.
For us to dream a little bit, here's what we'd like to, when we dream, here's what we dream about. We dream about having every middle school kid, this is just a dream, now every middle school kid in the city has a chance to go to an after-school program of his or her choice. And it's not just us, that's all the DHS providers, that's all the nonprofits, that's the library, the park and rec. So if we organize this well enough, we have each kid, now they may not all come, but at least they have an opportunity in their neighborhood to make a choice. They want to play basketball, they want to be outside, they want to do dance or drama, they have an opportunity. And that we have some kind of measure, some base measuring system that makes sense to everybody. Makes sense to you guys, makes sense to us, makes sense to the parents, and makes sense to the people providing the service. So, and like something like the kids healthier. What are the measures for healthier? There's homework help, so there's a better chance that that kid's going to go to school tomorrow. So around truancy, around some basic, nothing too highfalutin, but stuff that's real and people get, the people who are receiving it as well as the people providing the service. And that we engage the adults in the neighborhoods. That I believe that we think we're going to make an impact on kids in programs, and we're not engaging large numbers of the adults in those neighborhoods. I don't care what neighborhood we're in, we're going to fail. So we have to have a program and a process that builds the capacity and the engagement of citizens in that work with the city, who's the biggest single provider. You look at the school district, the library, Parks and Rec, and DHS. We're the big provider, or they're either funders or providers, and everybody else who's doing that work, right? Sort of move that process forward in a system. And we've been working on this. I mean, we have a Wallace grant, DHS and Rec have been working on this for the last 3 years. We have quality standards, we have some good data about what's available, and now we're poised to take the next step. So that's kind of the dream, that would be some good data, good outcomes, really engaging the community up front and in a serious way, and then a collaborative effort, not just in the city, but the city turns itself out to the big nonprofit and neighborhood world. And I think that would be a big step forward, and we're kind of in the middle of that journey right now. That's really long, I'm sorry, but that's the dream.
Well, I have this philosophy, you dream big, and if that doesn't work, then you dream bigger. So, and to that end, I've heard all of the major providers of young people and children. How can we do better when it comes to the school district? You're doing an extraordinary job when it comes to DHS. When we look at the decline of physical fitness in our schools, what, in that strategic plan that you've clearly thought through, what strategies or opportunities are in place to intentionally link up with schools so that this dream is realized?
Well, two things. One is that, this council a couple of years ago with the mayor, we worked to keep the school gyms open in the winter time for we need extra programming space. We have 55 gyms, and we need to double that to meet the demand for our winter indoor programs. So that was big, and that kept the school district in play.
Yes, it did.
It was money, but not giant money, so I think it worked out for the leadership, the mayor and council working together to come up with that. They continue to be part of this discussion about out-of-school time.
So that's the REACH program?
They're in the discussion. They're part of the Wallace grant that's been, DHS and now Department of Parks and Rec working together to advance that systematic approach, and they've been part of both the data collection and the standards setting.
Okay. Briefly discuss how these programs are come to the attention of young people. And I have to, this is not an original thought. I got this from one of my interns, because they are delighted to hear that these kinds of options exist, but they are unaware of them. So help us understand how the word gets to young people, particularly in our high schools who have the option to travel.
Well, I think the way it works, and Susan, I'll ask Susan or Mark to jump in here. It really works from the center. I mean, it works from a place. I mean, for at least the way it works best for us, and I know there's other newer ways to do it, but you start with the place, the rec center, the neighborhood, and the adult leadership in that neighborhood.
Okay.
And then from there, it pushes out. I know there are other ways that young people communicate these days. We are working hard to catch up with how to communicate electronically and virally with them.
Well, that's good news. They would
But
say that that's good news.
We're trying to advance that, those possibilities or
Okay.
those capabilities. But I think Susan or Mark, if they want to add more to that, but there might be.
And of course, most of our teenagers are going to go to Twitter, Facebook, something on the computer. We have a wonderful website. We also have Twitter. We have
Okay.
Facebook. But I will say that that age group is, if it's not something that they've come up with, if it's not something that they're interested in, we work hard to try to get them in our facilities. And so we have to be a little creative, because teens have their own minds. And so Leo and I have been just talking and trying to figure out what we can do. We've been doing some programming as a part of the mayor's violence reduction program at Martin Luther King Recreation Facility. And one of the areas that we're focusing on, and we're partnering with PAN as well as Women's Christian Alliance.
Sure.
They're offering programs specifically for our teens. And so that's one of the ways that we're trying to get the word out. They're going to schools. They're going and they're giving out flyers. It's word of mouth, but you have to have somebody on the ground talking about what's going on, pulling teens in, getting them involved. Once you get them in the door, we use that carrot of whether it's sports, athletics, basketball, baseball, but we have to figure out how to keep them. And the way we've been doing it is actually just getting programs that work for them. And sometimes it's outside providers that come into our facility and actually run those programs for our teens.
For what it's worth, I'm not a market researcher, but I have enormous respect for those who do it well, Beverly Harper being one, and I've learned the value of focus groups. So imagine the focus groups of youth, where they can tell us how best to reach them as a means to deepening the awareness of these programs.
And that's exactly what we did. We actually did it throughout the city a year and a half ago, and last fall we did it at Martin Luther King. We had focus groups specifically for teens.
Very good.
And we invited them to come in to tell us, what can we do? What can we offer that would cause you to want this to be your second home? We actually have the data as a result of those meetings throughout the city.
Very good. Councilwoman Bass?
Thank you. And just a couple more follow-up questions. So can you talk about tree removals and maintenance of trees? Because I know that we do have a bit of a backlog on that, and I was wondering, how much are we allocating towards that? How far behind are we? What's that all mean right now in your world? Just because, particularly as we get closer to storm season, so we saw a lot of trees come down during the ice storms, and that causes power lines to go down and all kinds of other things to happen. So whether there was that happening, or you have during hurricane season a lot of trees that are either have fallen down or you have trees that people are concerned about falling down that have been deemed as dead or dangerous, that, it takes some time to get to them. So can you give us some estimation as to how we're doing with that?
Sure. Certainly, Councilwoman. As of the end of March, which was yesterday, 2 days ago, our current backlog for tree removal is 2,013 trees is in our database across the city.
2013 trees?
Right, for tree removal. That's a little up from our average, but it's not anywhere near our high of several years ago when we were up much closer to 4,000 or 5,000 on our backlog.
Are the majority of these trees are they on city streets and neighborhoods, or does that include trees located within the park system as well?
This is just, I'm looking, street trees. This is just the street
okay,
trees, yeah.
Okay. And so as we plant more trees, do we also include, additional dollars? Do we calculate additional dollars for the maintenance of those trees as well?
Yes, we in the last several years have redone our specs for tree planting, and so we're constantly revising using the best information. The pit size, which is, as much airspace and soil space you can give a tree to keep it alive, the longer it'll last. Our mantra is always to make sure we get the right tree in the right place. So the right species, thin, broad, short, tall, will increase the likelihood that it will survive. Getting it in an appropriately sized pit, and then getting a 2-year warranty on the tree. So we're
Okay.
constantly revising those specs, yes.
Very good, very good. Also, just going back to this winter, I know that Parks and Rec, like everybody in the city, took a real hit with this weather that we were having. And I just, I understand that we, the Parks and Rec Department really did help out with snow removal and ice and, all those things that needed to be done. But I'm wondering if you can comment a little bit about the rec centers themselves during that same period, because we had to allocate, Parks and Rec personnel to the streets department, basically.
Sure.
And no offense to the streets department, but, there may have been some, need still, well, there was some need still within the Parks and Recs system, because we were helping out with other things. So can you give some comment on that as well?
Sure, certainly. So this year our staff worked on 16 storms, which is a significant number over a typical winter for us. We're responsible to clear about 50 miles of roads throughout the park system, throughout the entire system. Then we also support the streets department residential deployment, because we tend to have smaller equipment, pickup trucks with smaller plows on, so we get what are called grids,
Right.
which are in some of the smaller neighborhoods.
A question for you, though. Is there a priority if there is a major snow event and, the streets department obviously needs some help, but is there a priority for helping the streets department, but at the same time making sure that the pathway or the sidewalks or whatever are clear on, the land surrounding the rec centers first? Because that
Yes.
still is land or sidewalks that are used for kids going to school and people who need to get around. And so I think, some of that may not have been covered during this particular snow event, but I realize that this year was abnormal, to say the least.
Yes, Councilwoman, there is a priority. We clear our own facilities first. One of the challenges is making sure that we get the right equipment and the right staff to the different facilities. Some of our facilities with wider sidewalks can be cleared with a pickup truck. Other ones need snow blowers. We're in the process of acquiring more snow blowers and also working with our recreation advisory councils to purchase more snow blowers, so there's actually equipment housed at the facility. So we
Okay.
just need to get staff to the facility, not staff and equipment
Right, I
to the
see.
facility.
Okay.
And just continuing on a little bit of the stats, we had over 500 tree emergencies this winter. So that's in addition to obviously our snow removal. That's our tree crews responding to downed trees, again, all street trees, down during winter storms. So the total economic impact was about $265,000 of additional overtime spent on both snow removal and tree emergencies.
Okay. And I know that that's the bell, so I have
Thank you so
to,
very
can't
much,
ask any more
Councilwoman
questions.
Bass.
But can I make a real quick statement?
Oh, surely.
I did want to acknowledge also the work that Parks and Recreation has done on making sure that our rec centers and playgrounds are places for everyone, that they're intergenerational. And so we've worked together to make sure that all of our rec centers are places that you can go, you can take your children, you can take your grandchildren, and there's something to do. In my district, we've worked very hard to make sure that every playground that is touched in any sort of way, with new equipment and so forth, that we include a few components. And those components include making sure that we have workout or fitness equipment for adults and for seniors, and also that we have special needs equipment for children with, particularly with developmental disabilities, autism and the like, so that there's a place for everyone to be able to come and to see and to explore playgrounds. And even with the playground that's in the Northeast, I can't think of the name of it right now, that was especially built for children with special needs. And I went to the ribbon cutting for that, and it's just a wonderful place. And also, a lot of it, the playground, you really wouldn't be able to tell exactly what it is that resonates necessarily with a special needs child, but there are certain colors and textures and things of that nature that really do make a difference. So, I just really wanted to commend you all for being so forward-thinking, because, it shouldn't be, if you have, just that playgrounds and rec centers are just for, children who are able to walk into them, or who don't need the additional assistance. It should really be an amenity for everyone in our city. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Agreed. Agreed. Thank you, Councilwoman Bass. And that would be the chair of the City Council Committee on Parks and Recreation. Thank you, Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you.
Please, Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just two quick questions. One, briefly before I was elected in the office, and I guess it was like 2010, they had cut the budget dramatically. I think it was like 60%, like $4.9 million. But we saw what happened when we did that. We saw the decay of the buildings, we saw the decay of the programs. And at that time, and I remember back then reading about it and the intense lobbying from Park and Rec fans about the parking tax. And at that point, the parking tax was direct funding into the Parks and Rec. And I know I see Rebecca here, so maybe it's a question for her. But now that the city's getting back up on their feet, that tax that was promised to Parks and Recs, is that something that I know you guys can't really speak on, but maybe Rebecca could speak on how we could maybe use that funding?
Or my seat.
Good afternoon, Councilman. The parking tax, you're right, was originally planned, you're right, before the Great Recession to augment the Parks and Rec budget. And then, as we all know, the biggest recession since the Great Depression hit, and we had to cut virtually every city department. And so at this point, while we are doing much better, and most of our taxes are growing quite well, there's still, as we've spoken about, wage taxes still coming in below projections, and there's other economic, the unevenness in the economic recovery that we're still struggling with. So I would say that while we're doing better, our fund balance levels in the 5-year plan still get down to $25 million, which is well below where they should be. And I guess this is a very long way of saying that I don't think there's immediate plans to redirect it all towards Parks and Rec.
All right, I expected that answer, but...
Okay. You made me go through that.
Yeah. Now that we are recovering, and it seems there, I mean, the rec sewer a source of income that we know that will be generated into Parks and Rec, since we see what it does to our city and how it improves our city and what it means to the people and the residents of the city. Can we get back there? That was something that was promised. That was a reason why we did it. That was the reason why we got support for it. Is there a way that you think the administration can now say, you know what, let's get that money back into Parks and Rec?
Just to be clear, are you saying the money from the tax? Is that what you're
Parking tax.
The parking tax. I think that we have, over the last 2 years, added additional money back into the Parks and Rec department. So we added in the mid-year transfer ordinance that Mike DiBerdina spoke about $2.5 million, and then we're adding another $500,000 for fiscal 15. We're building it up. It's not as fast as as many people would hope, but then there's a lot of priorities for the city, and it's hard given our limited resources. But Parks and Rec, we have been trying to lift their budget incrementally.
And we understand it. So the answer is that we will not have a direct source of income from a tax or anything else that would go directly to Parks and Rec, the way that was planned.
There's no plan to have a direct tax for Parks and Rec. I mean, it's similar to other departments of the city that they are funded through the general fund budget.
I know. I mean, if you look throughout, municipalities throughout the country, they have some taxes on things or monies that come in that actually fund a department or program. Are you saying that you just want, this administration would just want everything going in the general fund, then decide where that money goes?
I would say that we're open to any discussion about any proposal that you might have or that might be of interest to you, but any tax increase is a tax increase.
Parking tickets?
The parking tax right now is going into the general fund.
No, last year I introduced the parking ticket, an increase, remember that? But it was, we found out we couldn't do that because that money had to go into the general fund and for the use. So I would like to sit down and speak to you too to see if we could come up with some way where we could get at least a sustainable funding source that we know that would go in there, and hopefully that tax as it increases the budget, because we see what it does. We see what additional dollars do. We would love to have $5 million extra dollars into the budget. And if we could find a way to do that, I would like to work with you to make that happen.
Be happy to talk to you.
All right, thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
I was about to say, Councilman Squilla, you had additional time. Would you like to make a statement?
No, that's it.
Good?
Yes, thank you very much. And
You're welcome.
I think people know how I feel about the Parks and Rec, and along with my colleague, Councilwoman Bass, on the Committee on Parks and Rec. So it's an important aspect, I think, for all of us. And
Indeed.
we need to really improve and look at that and realize when you have a resource that really grows the city and helps the city create more income for itself, I think we need to really work toward making sure that happens.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Squilla. Councilman Johnson?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
Doing a great job, by
Thank
the
you.
way.
Work at it.
I want to also echo the sentiments of my colleague from South Philadelphia, Councilman Mark Squilla. One on the funding side, as it relates to the parking tax and the promise that was made to the Department of Parks and Rec. And we do understand that during probably one of the worst recessions in our history, it had a significant impact on all the departments, and so we do understand that. But as we move forward, we can continue to stay focused on how we go about restoring the funding to the full $5 million, regardless if it's. And I want to be clear when I say this, and it's not so much for the crowd, but regardless if it's this administration or the next administration, we will still remain vigilant in making sure our parks and recs are supported. When, Michael, you talk about, having a vision of all young people having the opportunity to go to a quality after-school program, that was my life as a kid growing up in Point Breeze. Mm-hmm. So we enjoyed going to Chew Playground. Being raised by my grandmother, we had a chance to go to summer programs for free every summer. And I joined. You ever had a peanut butter and jelly with the graham crackers? You got to grow up in the neighborhood to kind of know what I'm talking about, right? But nevertheless, so we're going to continue staying focused on that for the long term. And Rebecca's a constituent of mine, and she represents the administration, and she's doing a good job. And as an elected official representing my constituents for Parks and Rec, we want to remain focused on making sure our parks and our recreation facilities have the type of resources that they do need, because it's a great alternative for young people hanging out on a corner. A couple things I want to touch base on. Although we're giving them $500,000 for programming, and you answered, Susan gave a very detailed account of how these funds will be utilized from the programming standpoint. before the council president and the other individuals who will be working with the administration as specifically our leadership team. I think they're advocating for money beyond the $500,000. I think will do all of our districts well when it comes to the programming. The programming side of how Parks and Rec operate. On the capital side, I think we're doing a good job. The partnership with Fairmount Park Conservancy, we came down and we did a project down at FDR Park when I first got elected, which is definitely one of the jewels inside my district. Frank and Susan has been outstanding in helping me address a variety of couple of issues. One, we just came from Myers looking at various improvements that we're going to do there, as well as me specifically focusing on redoing several basketball courts and playground equipment inside my district. But I think the programming side is another way that really engages in the partnerships to get young people like off the streets. And hopefully as we move forward, and I think coming outside, hanging out in the park is cool, right? But I also believe engaging young people, right? And after school safe haven is probably one of the most important things we can be doing as a city. I mean, downtown is cool, but in our local neighborhoods, from Point Breeze to Brownsburg, needs to have opportunities for young people to come out and get involved in. And so I just wanted to come down and state for the record that I'm supportive of trying to find a way to move beyond the $500,000 to support Parks and Rec. Just because it's something that I believe in. On the public safety side, I do thank Madam Chair of Parks and Rec, the great councilwoman from the Northwest, Cindy Bass, who I think is doing a fantastic job with making sure that every rec center has a camera, has a video camera in there. I think that's a great initiative that we're rolling out. One thing I did want to bring to our attention, to pay attention to, or ask the question, how often is our playground equipment inspected? Because there's this new, I want to make sure I find the right words. We have nut jobs who are putting taping razor blades on playground equipment. And I don't know, why would you put razor blades on playground equipment? I don't understand. That kind of don't make sense, but nevertheless, that's like this new phenomenon that's going on. So can you give us an idea of how often y'all go out, you do inspections, make sure the playground equipment is equipped? And then two, a constituent also approached me about addressing the issue of your swimming pool policies. It was a young man, son passed away in a swimming pool up in Cobbs Creek. Came to me and said, hey, listen, my son couldn't swim. Clearly, we had signatures. He signed a statement saying he couldn't swim. 4 or 5 lifeguards in the swimming pool, and somehow my son winds up dead. So from a public safety standpoint, it was disheartening when I heard about it. And so I wanted to find out ways on how are we addressing it to make sure that something like that doesn't happen. And on the playground equipment side, we're being diligent in paying attention to the playground equipment. So if somebody does decide to take razor blades to playground equipment, we'll catch it before kids actually, play in the playground on the equipment.
Sure. Thank you, Councilman. I'll address the playground equipment. We have a playground equipment safety crew as part of our skilled trades unit, and they inspect every one of our, we have over 130 playgrounds. They inspect each one at a minimum annually. So they will go to each site, and when they visit that site, they always carry with them. They have a whole truck equipped with spare parts. So if there's things that they have that are bolts or things like that they see that are missing, they can make repairs immediately. They also then have a process to get things if they need to be put on the short-term repair list, or actually if it's a piece of equipment that needs to be repaired through the capital process, it'll go into the capital process. In some cases, they actually disable the piece of equipment. We don't like to do that, but if it simply can't be repaired in order to make it safe, they will remove a piece of the equipment so it's non-functional.
The soft inspection, is the rec leader responsible for just going out in the morning just to see what's on the grounds?
Yes.
Look at equipment, just to, I'm not even talking about bolts and stuff, broken it or replacing the equipment. I'm just talking about just a soft look at the equipment in general.
Sure, at each of our staffed facilities, at each of our recreation centers that are staffed, it's the recreation leader or the maintenance leader's responsibility to police the grounds every morning when they arrive. And then the remainder of our facilities that are not staffed, so there's not staff that reports to that site, we have rotating maintenance crews that are operations. They also pick up the trash and do other things, so they will check on the playground on a daily basis also, as far as the ground surface. But again, the equipment is a specific crew that inspects the equipment on a regular basis.
Okay. Mike?
And just to add that our biggest problem there is the safety surface. We can generally take care of the built stuff, the metal, the aluminum, whatever the construction material is, but we do not have the capacity to fabricate and repair safety surface, so that all has to be either capital or contracted out. So that sometimes people see a swing set without a swing, and they don't think we have swings. It's that the safety matting isn't up to standard, so we have to, if we hate to do this, we have to pull the swing
Let me do
out
this.
until we can do the
Commissioner,
matting.
Let me do this to be more specific then. All right, and then, the question was already answered basically, because I'm going specifically to the new phenomenon of putting razor blades on kids' playground equipment. Google it this evening, and I just read it yesterday, and I read another story about 2 weeks ago. And when I read it the first time, I'm like, okay, one nut job, it just happened.
Right.
When I read it again, okay, and nothing happened in either incident. They actually caught it. And so if it's not on your radar, it's probably something to pay attention to. I
Right.
think in Packard Park,
Okay.
nut jobs, they burnt down the equipment.
Right.
Now somebody's going to a next level of putting razor blades on actual, so regardless of who's responsible for inspecting it, whether it's the rec leader or your crew that you send out, it's just probably something just to be aware of.
Thank you.
Thank you. I
Yes.
have not been aware of this, but I will be very sure.
I'll get you the articles.
Okay.
I have my staff send it over to you.
It was covered on one of the,
And then your
several of the news outlets.
And then your second
Yeah.
question.
The swimming
Yeah.
pools, policy.
Yep, that was a very difficult time for the leadership of the department and for the staff, for the program staff, and particularly at Cobb's Creek. So that was a sad, just a difficult time for all of us. Leo Dignam and Leo's Deputy Commissioner for Programs and Susan worked right away, not only to process that with the family. I mean, it was tough. And Susan was on the scene and almost there for days on end to try to be responsible as best we could. But then when we were done grieving and praying, we got right down to trying to figure out what would next year look like. And what did
So
we
what
learn?
will next year
What did
look
we learn? Yeah, and we're going to give it to Susan. And Leo can talk. What did we learn? How do we respond to the tragedy? And I think we've done, at least we're going to test it out this year, but I think we've done a thorough review and have adopted a set of standards that exceed our past.
So if it's okay, I'm going to let Leo come and respond to this. Radu, the father of the young man, was a young man that I used to teach in Sunday school, so I was very familiar and acquainted. They were friends and family. But our goal is for that to never happen. And hopefully what we put together will make all the difference in the world. So I'm going to let Leo.
My name's Leo Dignam. I'm Deputy Commissioner for Programs. And again, we as Deputy Commissioner and Deputy Mayor said, we were all grieving about the issue at Cobb's Creek. What some people may not know is that last year we had 255 outside camps or daycares that used our pools. So this situation was one of those outside daycares the paperwork that you talked about where the parents identified that the child couldn't swim was given to that daycare, not to us. So we were unaware of that. So one of the big changes that we've made this year, and it was a practice that we've done with all of our camps. We have 140 camps of our own at our own rec centers. This is an additional 255 outside camps or daycares. We will be screening every camper before they get into the pool.
What does that consist of?
So that consists of the certified lifeguards making sure that the kids can swim.
When I was a kid, right, growing up,
Yeah.
before we got in, we had to do some type of drills.
Right,
Especially if I said I wanted to go in 9 feet, me and my little crew, we had to sit on the side of the pool, and one by one, you had to do something. So
that's what this screening is. So again, as you can imagine, it takes a long time, and when it's 90 degrees out and people don't want to wait or the kids don't want to wait to get into the pool, it's sometimes difficult to do that, but we have made that mandatory at all of our pools and for all those 255 outside day camps and daycares, as well as our own 140 camps. So all of those kids will be screened the first time they come in. If they can't swim, they'll be identified as not being able to swim, and they'll be, we'll have rope off a section of the shallow end of the pool and make sure they can stay in that area only. They'll be identified on paper as well so that the staff from the camp or daycare that brings them in has to be there with them to make sure, along with our lifeguards, to make sure that they're safe. That's the first thing we're going to do. The other thing that we're going to do is it's a state regulation that these outside daycares and day camps, to get funding, have to go through water safety training. And now we're going to make that mandatory for all of those 255 daycares and day camps. We're going to provide the training at a low cost, $25 per site, to go through this, but in order for them to get a permit to go into our pools with their camps and daycares, they're going to have to go through that water safety training. All of our employees, seasonal employees that work in our camps will also have to go through that water safety training, so that virtually everybody on deck besides the lifeguards who already have that training will have that water safety training. We also have added signage to all of our facilities about parents making sure they are at or in the pool with their kids if their kids are under 45 inches or they can't swim, and also other issues around not pretending to hold your breath. That's a big game the kids like to play. That's not allowed in our facilities, in our pools anymore. New signage will go up this year to that effect. So that if anybody is seen doing that, they'll be automatically, checked to make sure that they're okay.
How many lifeguards are assigned to individual pools?
The minimum is 5 lifeguards for every pool.
Who supervises the lifeguards? Is there a lifeguard?
There's a lifeguard 2, which is the head lifeguard at a facility, and then there's 4 lifeguard 1s at that facility. But ultimately, there is the supervisor at the pool, which is a recreation leader or recreation professional. That is the ultimate supervisor of that staff.
The rec leader supervises the lifeguards.
Right. On the deck, the lifeguard 2 supervises.
Overall, the director is responsible for everything.
Overall, the director is responsible, and the director we have an audit system where each supervisor has to check, go through a series of safety checks on the pool twice a day. We also have district managers who go to every one of their pools twice a week, and we also have water safety instructors that visit the pools for those types of
On
audits.
an average day, how often are the children pulled out of the pools for inspection? You know how they say time out, and everybody has to get out the side of the pool?
Yeah, well,
Get out the pool, we sit on the side and wait.
Right, our pools are open 8 hours a day from 11 to 7. It's mandatory that we do hourly chlorine checks to make sure the chlorine is above, the level of safety. So that's every hour. So when you see that, everybody blows the whistle, the kids get out of the pool, that's a chlorine
So
check.
that's done hourly?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Just, Councilman, look, in the end, it's our responsibility. I mean, we can have lifeguards and we can have day camps coming in and childcare, and we want to do that. But in the end, it's our responsibility. And so the leader, the district manager, and ultimately up to the leadership of the department, it's our responsibility. And other people have to help and be part of that, but that's our job. So I think I believe anyway, and we'll keep our fingers crossed, we've adjusted, significantly changed the way the camps come in and the way we identify and allow young people who can't swim to enjoy the pool. And they're the two big things that we've changed.
And Madam Chair, if you allow me.
Give him the line of questioning and the issue.
Okay. And I want to go to a different direction.
On
So-
this issue.
No, next, just another issue.
Okay, so forgive me, I believe you want to comment on this
You
issue,
have
did
another
you not?
comment, Leo?
I have one last comment
Sure.
that Deputy Slauson mentioned to me.
Yes.
That in the past, because we have so many outside organizations that want to use our pools, there are certain areas, certain pools that would request to open early. Instead of open at 11 o'clock, open at 9 o'clock in the morning. We will not be doing that anymore because of the effects that it could have on the staff. You know, if you have a lifeguard that's there for 10 hours instead of 8 hours, it may have an impact on their ability to stay focused on their...
You got 4 lifeguards though, right? And 4 or
Five,
some?
there's five total lifeguards, right. But it's over an 8-hour period and they have to have hourly breaks. So they're constantly moving in and out. We also have a self-imposed ratio of lifeguards to children in the pool. So we don't allow, we have a ratio of 30-1, which there's no other standard like that anywhere else. We imposed that on ourselves several years ago because on a particularly hot day, you could have 250 kids in the pool with 5 lifeguards, and that's a 50-1 ratio. We feel like it's much safer at a 30-1. So that's why you may also see we run lines when there's more than 150 kids in the pool. So, you know, they'll be in for a half hour, they get out, the next 150 come in, or however it works out.
Wow.
And, okay.
Friendly, firm hand, is it on this issue? If not, then we need to continue with the round, only because this is going on for, this line of questioning has gone on for a little while.
Madam Chair, if you
Yes.
don't allow, let me indulge in just one last question.
Really?
Before I leave, if you don't mind.
Go ahead, Councilman Johnson.
Thank you. In the spirit of Council President Verner,
How does that
fair
happen?
but firm. Thank you. Last thing, and I've been dealing with this issue prior to me becoming an elected council person. So, Cobbs Creek Parkway, it borders Councilwoman Janie Blackwell's district, borders my district. You ride down Cobbs Creek Parkway, looks like Department of Rec, and I don't have a problem being supportive. Y'all want more money, that's all great and fine and dandy, but now we want to talk about my district. That area, it's a funeral home, I mean, there's a cemetery on the opposite side of the street. On the left-hand side of the street, I mean, I've been emailing, I've been calling, I'm about the brick wall when you come from southwest up top, it's just still hanging off on the side. I usually don't try to put people on blast in public, but I'm emailing, calling, you know, so I'm like, y'all need help.
This is the retaining wall, right?
It's a retaining
Is this the one
wall.
we talked about?
Oh, we talked about it a couple times. Emailed it,
It's streets department.
Saying help.
I'm gonna let these
yeah.
guys answer.
And one last thing, it's really about the total maintenance, to be quite frank with you. It's really about the maintenance of that corridor, and just making sure that that corridor has a level of attention. I know it's not a lot of houses down there, right? But the same area of Cobbs Creek should get the same level of attention as Schuylkill River Trail, FDR Park, and other parts of the area where there's a significant amount of people that live there. So, and I support y'all getting the type of funding y'all need to do the things y'all need to do, but the reality is that part of my district has to be maintained. And unless I advocate the opposite moving forward. It is what it is.
We thank you, Councilman Johnson, for that very firm statement. Councilwoman Janie Blackwell?
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the comments that my colleague made. The redistricting, I could have got it, but I got enough. But it is an issue, because we invested our park dollars into fixing a little gate that goes around. So my side looking okay, but your side, yes. But at any rate, but let me say that every year, if we get it once, we get it every couple of weeks. Somebody asks us about extending the swim program before and/or after the current time. Is that being looked at? Is there any way that's possible? People ask me all the time.
Thank you for that question, Councilwoman Blackwell.
Yeah, we were
We were going to answer.
right, Mark. Right, we were trying to get in and answer. Madam Chair? So look, I want to go look at this with you, but part of this is the streets. I don't want to lay on some other department, but yeah, I think we ought to do this together. It ought to be us and the streets department, and I'm happy to come look at this and figure out how to, together, the two departments, and figure this out about whose responsibility or how do we just do it? So I'd welcome the opportunity now that the weather's kind of cooperating. Yeah, absolutely.
The other organization that needs to be involved in that tour is PennDOT, because Cobbs Creek Parkway is a state highway. They consistently have not worked with us when we've tried to replace the guide rail there at the bend at Mount Moriah Cemetery. We know exactly what you're talking about, Councilman. It's a huge frustration for us. The land on either side is not ours because Mount Moriah Cemetery comes right up to the roadway. The roadway is a PennDOT state highway. So there's another party here that's also partially responsible that needs to be engaged in this conversation.
Let them come along for the ride. Yeah,
Yes.
Let's go look at it. Yeah, thank you.
Council Lady Blackwell?
Thank you very much. I feel sorry for you, Councilman. But yes,
Yeah. Madam,
yes,
Madam Chair, I'll respond to Councilwoman Blackwell's question. Our pool budget currently is $2.4 million. Prior to 2010, it was $3.2 million. It costs approximately $50,000 to $60,000 a week to keep a pool open. When you're thinking about the pool staff, when you're talking about the equipment, the chlorine, and one of our other challenges is the lifeguards. A lot of them are college students, and they usually leave around the middle of August to go back to school. But the bigger issue for us would be finding in our budget $50,000 per pool to keep it open for an additional week.
then that's 1 week, colleagues, just 1 week. All right, but the only other thing I will say is that I'll make myself available, because in addition to the accessing pool problem, they said there's an after-school program that was cut. So when we meet, maybe we can talk about that.
We can talk about that, but we haven't cut anything there, and so
So it's not you if it's cut, you're saying it's not
it's
recreation.
definitely not us.
All right, thank you. That makes that clear for those who are still here. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Very welcome, Council Lady. Okay, good afternoon, Councilman Heenan.
Madam Chair, good evening. Oh, sorry, we're still in the afternoon. You guys could use a little softball, right?
Pardon?
Said you could use a softball right now. The key spots, all right, can you explain that, and can you provide a key spot centers and a 6 to the chair or my office?
Can you state that louder, Councilman? What was the question?
I'm sorry, key spots.
So they're broadband, we have 19 rec centers that have broadband connection and computers. We have, and in this year's budget, there's appropriation to maintain the instructional staff at those facilities. So we'll have people, so sometimes you have computers at centers, and if they can just sit there, and not be fully utilized. But this program is, what we like about it the most is we have technical staff who can be there to help build computer literacy, can work with general literacy, help people with job search. So it really becomes,
I love it.
it really becomes an asset when you have not only the technology, but then the human capital to go behind the technology. That's what makes, I think, the Key Spots so special. There's five facilities in the library system that have the similar program, and there's 19 in Parks and Rec. And they're programmed 15 hours a week.
It's a program, and bigger vision, and then if that doesn't work, the bigger vision is to have them
5 days a week,
wherever possible.
wherever possible, but even if we could start with the Key Spots that we currently have, because we're saying 15 hours a week, if we could bump up those hours to 30 hours a week, Monday through Friday, for us to have someone in those labs available for not just young people, but for seniors and adults as well, that would be a great bump for us.
Without question, and I mean, I think it would, I mean, obviously it goes tandemly with the types of programs that you have at that particular rec center. So it utilizes, in my opinion, it utilizes a space that either is underused, utilized, or it just supplements the program, the enhanced programmatic rec centers that we have. So I encourage, I would keep putting it in, submit more money in for it. I mean, I think technology is what we lack as a city, and we have for years. We're incrementally trying to, catch up. We're always going to try to catch up. I just think we pull the Band-Aid off and do everything at once. Is what I would say, because it would make us provide better services, provide better programs, provide better resources, provide better opportunities to serve the public in an efficient way, all across the board.
This was initially a grant that we put in for, the department put in for, and it was only supposed to last for 3 years. And the mayor recognized just how important it was for us to continue this system, so we ensured that we had the funding to maintain the staff. He made sure that was in our budget. So I'm grateful that you recognize how important it is, and I'm grateful that the mayor also recognized it was something we needed to maintain in our system.
Right, and we were constantly talking about, I mean, although it doesn't bridge the digital divide, but it does offer opportunities for people who may not, or children and adults that may not have the opportunity to, have, to go online or have computers. You have, I mean, it's in concert, with the after-school programs and computer centers that we have. So in this year's, regarding the budget allocation, I believe it's the same as last year regarding the usage of the gyms. All right. And so in the last, I only see $338,000 in that. Is that enough to support the use and the selection of our, I would say selection, the usage of our gyms at the times? I mean, you did increase an hour and then centers, right?
Yeah, well, I'll let Leo talk about this because he constructed this, but essentially we economized, so we have less gyms, but we extended the hours.
Extended the hours,
and
brought back the hours.
And put them in the bigger multi-gym facilities.
Right.
That allowed us to sort of get the best buy for the dollars we invested. But Leo has a much more detailed understanding.
Yeah. This is our second year in the program. We had the same amount of money for the last 2 years. We have, as Deputy Mayor said, 55 of our own gyms. In the past, we had 120 school gyms. We're down to 20 gyms that are open on Saturdays and extended hours, and another 100 that are open from 6:30 to 8 o'clock at night. So, it's enough to get a group in there to have a game, right? Or a practice.
People are adjusting their schedules?
We have not, we have, the first year of the program, I think we had a lot more pushback from community groups that were used to having as many hours as they could find because the school district was very generous with that. But since they had to cut back on that, this year we had very limited complaints. I would say maybe 5 asked to extend. The school district did not extend those 5 schools, but we just found room for them in our other gyms that we control.
And I do switch subjects. I do like, because running out of my time, 2 last things, and they're quick. The additional staff that you're putting on your skilled trades to help move forward with some of the repairs and little minor installations. That's going well. I mean, are you? You know your rate of return on
Yeah,
that
well,
if you would
I
have gone
think-
through the other process. And I think most of it is the time.
Right.
It's a time-sensitive thing.
Yeah, so we cut the time, by some astronomical, like 6 weeks instead of 6 to 9 months. So we can get a job done that fast. The savings Mark talked about earlier, we're projecting. These are projections because we're really at the initial stages of this work, but our projections are that we will save significant dollars. Mark can run through that.
Yeah, so Councilman, there's 30 projects through the 10 councilmatic districts that total have committed $563,000 to the projects. 10 of the 30 have been completed just since November. A lot of the ones that weren't completed were because they were roofs or boilers or things you don't do during the winter. We estimate that comparing these to a capital bid project, this probably was $1.5 million to $2 million worth of improvements that is being bought for $563,000 of council ITE money to buy the materials, then implemented by our staff.
Okay, great. And my last question, do you have an asset management system with the Department of Parks and Recs?
We actually have several different outdated asset management systems from when we were separate departments. We're in the process of combining into one new asset management system that has been used by public property for this building.
Okay, great. And I will submit to you, I would submit to you for all, for Parks and Recs or however you've merged it, the questions that I've been asking every department. Do we own all the buildings? Do, are we leasing any buildings? What's our percentage of usage? How many employees are in there? And et cetera, the utilities. So I will, it is square footage of everything. So what I'll do is I will submit to you all those questions in writing, and you can, just submit that to the chair. I appreciate it.
Great, yeah, we will do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a quick follow-up to Councilman Heenan's question, equity and access when it comes to the internet. So could you also provide what it would cost to go to 5 days a week with the key spots? And that becomes helpful in our own budget negotiations.
Sure.
Yes, Madam Chair, we'll get you that information.
Okay, then. Please, Councilman Kenny?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
Just a suggestion on the swimming thing that was talked about with the little short kids, and we don't know if they can swim, and we don't have, lifeguards have to be responsible for watching them. Have you ever been to Maurice Piers water parks in Wildwood? Well, if you're a certain height or under a certain height, you have to wear a little swimmy that zips up or ties. If we were able to purchase them and have them sponsored by ShopRite or CVS or Blue Cross and then when you come in, I remember swimming in city pools before, they used to give you a bag so you could put your clothes in while you got changed into your, we got changed there for some reason. You put your clothes in, you hang it up. But when you left, you had to go through a line and you had to put the bag back. So when the 45-inch or shorter person goes in there for their swim time, they automatically have to put on the swimming. And at the end of the day, when they walk out, they put it in a big container, which is what they do at Maurice Pier. Yeah, and under a certain age, you have to wear one. I can't imagine there would be liability issues in us providing a life vest for someone when we're not sure they could swim.
Right.
But I assume you have that law department look in your face. So
Yeah, well, I'm not a lawyer.
Get them up here to tell us no. It's a bad idea.
Yeah,
Can't do it, no way.
We've been turned down when we've asked to use this type of equipment because for liability issues.
Wait,
because kids have to be fitted. There's certain sizes don't fit everybody.
Yeah, I know, but they have different...
And it also gives kids a false sense of security.
But
It's
they're not in the ocean, they're in a pool. They can't, if you push them down, they pop back up. You can't even get them underwater. They can't even go underwater and hold their breath because they pop back up.
yeah, we could
But-
look
but-
into it for you.
But listen to where I'm going. This is such a simple solution to this problem. You can't drown in a pool with a life vest. So get them the life vest, and then in the container at Maurice Pier, there's different sizes. You try, that don't fit, we'll put that one on. And then you go in the pool and you don't have to worry about them. You know, you can watch them, but you don't have to go dive in and save them. And if you put a little sticker on the back that's sponsored by Brown ShopRite or we could even get them paid for. They can't be that much. They're only rubber.
Yeah, I mean, we will look into it again, but...
You know what you should do? You should buy them. Don't ask the law department. Just buy them. And then let them tell us that we can't have them. If I'm ever in a position to do that, I'm doing it. I'm telling you. We're just going to go buy stuff. And they're going to, no, forget it. Don't worry about it. I have one comment and one question. First, you know, the interaction sometimes with me and the administration at that table is not always good. This is one of the best departments we have in the city government.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Without a doubt. And if you look at the resources that we give you or that you're given by the administration and we approve, you do missionary work with the money that you get. I mean, Commissioner and Mark and Leo and Frank Fabi's like, he's like a sea bee. It's like, remember the sea bees in World War II? Like they didn't have any equipment or anything and they built a bridge? That's him. I got a wooden basketball floor that like floods out and all of a sudden I get this wood, they're finding it they must be stealing it from other gyms.
I give him duct tape when he leaves the obligation to roll of duct tape.
I just want to compliment you. I know I don't compliment the administration a lot, but you guys are just super. And not only the recreation department stuff and the Fairmount Park stuff, but all the special events all year long. I mean, between public property and you guys, I mean, Welcome America and Made in USA? All those events all year long, I just got to stand up there or sit down and clap for you.
Thank you, Jim.
One serious question I ask every year. It's like being here for a long time, you get to ask the same question over and over again, and usually get the same answer. We talked about building rec centers and other capital projects with the city, and we always said that famous 137 steps. Remember the ones that would take us 7 years to build Palumbo or 7 years to build, because it was 137 steps? How many of those steps still exist? Do you have any idea?
We just talked, I mean, this is a capital budget question about the process.
Are we down to like 134?
I don't know.
I'm sorry, I missed
130?
the question was on the capital
Yeah,
process?
the matrix of things we have to do to take us 7 years to build something.
Yes, that was looked at by the capital process working group that Bridget Greenwald headed up and UPS was also involved in, and City Council also had a few people on that. And they made certain recommendations about reducing the process. Some of the steps many of the steps are required in terms of getting sign-off, and the issue often is having someone push it through the steps so that it doesn't sit anywhere too long.
I had asked when we've talked about this probably, and this is prior to the Nutter administration, probably 10, 12 years ago, for a matrix of the steps, and which are charter mandated, code mandated, state mandated, or whatever, to try to start picking them off by either changing the code, changing the charter,
Right.
ignoring some of them that we're not forced to do them, so that we streamline the 137 down to 20 or 25, and save. And obviously, you understand money, so you know that when we appropriate something in 1 year and we open the door with a key 7 years later, it's a lot more expensive than it should be.
Right, and also we want to get our projects done.
Right.
I mean, we, like you, want the projects done. Let me speak with with Bridget Greenwald, the property commissioner, because I know that was one of the things that working group looked at, and I'm thinking that there were findings that came out of that working group, and I would like to get that to you.
But if their charter change is needed, we get them started. If their code changes, we
Right.
get them started. I mean, just keep whittling down this silly mess that I mean, and it's no one's fault. It's over time and bureaucracy that things get where they are.
Right.
And which steps are longer than they need to be Is it planning, art commission? What are the things that, it's maddening to district council people and myself at large, and I'm sure the public at large, that it takes so long to see a project come to fruition.
And it should be. I mean, it's one of the things that's frustrating to us as well. So yes, I will get that to you and we'll continue the discussion.
Thank you, and kudos again to the rec department. Thank you.
I have a couple of follow-up questions to questions already raised, and then we will wrap up. Back to the tragic circumstance regarding the little person, and I commend you on it. Clearly, you thought very thoroughly and comprehensively about how to put safeguards in place. With regards to little people who come through, and you keep on paper those who had passed the test, is there additional tracking like wristbands or the like, so that a wristband in a bright color automatically lets you know that this young person has been through the test and been successful?
It is something that we're looking into. We haven't put anything in place yet, but we are looking.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good question, and it's a serious question for us. And we talked about this, trying to understand, would that be a help, and could we effectively sort of operate that
Sure.
program? But it could happen. I mean, we may happen this year, and if not this year, next year.
Sure.
But we'll make a decision soon.
Sure. To the question of trying to grow the next generation of young people who are conscientious in terms of nutrition, what linkages exist with entities like Food Trust or Weaver's Way, where you have, and towards the mayor's goal of having farmers markets, gardens, and farms accessible to all Philadelphians? To what extent have you spoken about urban farming within parks, et cetera, et cetera?
Actually, it's a growing interest in the department. In fact, we're building a small capacity to manage our what I think is a pretty ambitious program. We have now, as a youth development program, we have a minimum of 15 sites that have a summer program with growing food. Is that program, and young people can have an opportunity to do that. And we're building that out. I think we started with 6 or 7, and over the past couple of years we've built that out. And I think this year we will run between 15 and 20 summer youth development programs built around urban gardening.
Okay. And are those locations linked to those parts of the city where we have high incidence of diabetes, high blood pressure, obesity?
Yeah, there is. First of all, we need the available land. So if we don't have the usable land to do it, that's the only impediment. But the accessibility and equity are driving.
Part of the planning.
Or the driving values of the plan. And then the only thing that can cut against that is, does the facility have a spot that makes sense with the light and the available space that we could actually have a successful garden?
Okay.
So, but that's the only factor that cuts against that. And then we're working on sort of bringing in the existing gardens. There's lots of sort of unofficial gardens that have been around for like 10, 15, 20 years. We want to legitimize them. So we're working with both public property and RDA to bring them in and have them be official. So give them business certainty of sorts. So if they maintain their standards of operation, then that land would come into would be part of the public trust.
Okay.
And they would be able to have certainty that they're not going to get kicked off because something else is going to happen on the lot.
Okay.
So we're working very closely with both public property and RDA to build that program out.
Did you want to add?
Yeah, Councilwoman, I'd like to give you just one very concrete example. Hunting Park in North Philadelphia. When we did the master plan there with the Fairmont Park Conservancy in 2008, we mapped all sources of food within a mile of the perimeter, so every bodega, every fast food place, to identify sources of healthy food options. Sadly, there were very few. So that led to a grant application by the Fairmont Park Conservancy to the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, which subsequently led to the establishment of a very popular community garden embraced by the community. All the plots were taken in the first year. Then, which expanded to a orchard. So we planted an orchard with the Philadelphia Orchard Project, which expanded to a summer farmers market with an Amish family coming in and readily embraced by the community in the first weekend, and now has led to the Conservancy looking at a program plan to reactivate the refreshment stand associated with our athletic fields and the swimming pool as a place for healthy food options.
Very good.
So,
It's very, very exciting, very exciting.
I would just add that this is a developing
Phenomenon,
and
paradigm.
we're trying to stay up with the growth, the interest, and the possibilities around us, in
Yes.
our system and around.
I am often in conversations and discussions with the child care community. And so the question is, where does rec still allow child care centers in some of your rec centers, knowing that there's a separate layer of regulations and licensing
Right.
that comes with child care centers, and knowing also that there's still, we're still struggling with quality, accessible child care across the board for children in our city?
So we currently have 26 tot centers, and we service young people 2.5 to 4.5, preparing them for kindergarten. Only two of those sites are state certified.
Is that right?
That's it. There's a process that you'd have to go through, and we would have to reconfigure our buildings to actually fall under the
I
state
see.
certification. So our advisory councils at the other centers, they run the top program for various communities. So we're actually one of the highest provider for kindergarten to the public school with our top program. It's just that all of our sites are not certified.
And so are there discussions and dialogue with DeVacy to examine how we can move those child care centers to becoming a state?
We have not had those conversations. I've actually had conversations with staff about the whole state process, and it would cost us a considerable capital
I see.
increase for us to make that happen within our system.
I see. Okay. That concludes all of my questions, unless Councilwoman Bass, anything remaining you'd like to share or offer?
Well, no, but thank you very much for offering me the opportunity. But I did once again want to reiterate what a pleasure it's been and what a great working relationship that we all have together. And, we've learned to do more with less. We'd like to have more. We're working towards getting more. But in the meantime, I think that you all do a great job, and I just really wanted to be on record for that. So thank you.
thank you, Councilwoman.
What I'd like to add is how much I have appreciated the fact that you all have attempted to honor the recommendations that came out of the strategic plan around the merging of these two departments, and how I continue to pay attention myself. Since it took us a minute to get that done, but we ended up at a good, and I would suggest a better place, particularly as I hear about the efficiencies that are taking place and how both departments have been able to remain whole in their mission while we look to operate more efficiently across government.
You are paying attention, and thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. We're going to take a 5-minute recess, and then we're going to invite the city representative to come to the table. Office. Welcome to the marathon. And you would know that better than anyone else, right, City Rep?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Yes, Desiree Peter Campbell. I'm the city representative, and I'm here joined by Margaret Hughes, my deputy, and Elka Battle, my other deputy, and a couple of members from my team. I'm pleased to appear before council on behalf of the Office of City Representative, FY15 operating budget request of $1,005,915. This number represents no change from OCR's fiscal year 14 budget appropriation. The Office of the City Rep is committed to supporting a diverse workforce. Of our 7 full-time staffers, 6 are female, 4 are Caucasian, 2 are African American, with 1 male being Caucasian.
That's diverse in the reverse.
Correct. OCR has exceeded the administration's FY14 goal of 25% for MWDSBE participation in city contracting with a participation rate of 29%. With OCR events such as Wawa Welcome America and Gore-Tex Philadelphia Marathon, our participation rate in WDSBE mandated goals exceeded the administration's goal for a total of 80%. We will continue to work to increase our participation rate going forward. OCR serves as the main vehicle of promotion and marketing for the City of Philadelphia. We produce major destination events like Wawa Welcome America, Gore-Tex Philadelphia Marathon that attracts tens of thousands of visitors to Philadelphia, and work with internal city departments to coordinate and increase the impact of departmental initiatives and ensure an economy of effort through collaboration. We work with external marketing agencies such as Visit Philadelphia, PHL-CVB to market and brand Philadelphia as a destination to promote events that attract businesses, visitors, residents alike, while enhancing the quality of life for our citizens. So I have a couple of handouts here for all the council members who are here. That's just one. And we cooperate with the federal, state, and municipal agencies to develop, integrate security procedures. They can see this, I only have one. You can just, hold it up and show it. Sorry. Our office is media proactive and responsive through campaigns supporting events such as Wawa Welcome America, the Gore-Tex Philadelphia Marathon, and Philadelphia Collection that we've resulted in numerous media placements throughout the country. We were very excited when Wawa Welcome America was touted as a summer fashion festival destination in the July issue of Vogue magazine. First time we were ever mentioned in Vogue. The opportunity to appear before council today gives me the perfect occasion to make a special announcement of breaking news for Wawa Welcome America. The Philly 4th of July Jam, the largest free outdoor concert in America, will welcome Vicky Martinez to the extraordinary lineup of star talent appearing on the Jam main stage this year. We are also in talks with Frankie Negron as well. And the 7-day festival, the theme this year, will be the 50th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the 60th anniversary of the landmark Brown v. Board of Education decision. In FY14, we secured a 3-year title sponsorship for the Philadelphia Marathon and celebrated the marathon's 20th anniversary as the Gore-Tex Philadelphia Marathon. We made tremendous strides toward becoming one of the top green marathons in the country with gold certification for 87.5% waste diversion awarded by the Council for Responsible Sport. With this award, we become one of only 3 large-scale marathons in the nation to receive this designation. Partnering with the Mayor's Office of Sustainability and the Office of Civic Engagement and Volunteer Service, we debuted a recycling waste diversion initiative, the Waste Watchers Volunteer Corps, at the 2012 marathon. Waste Watchers has recently been funded through the Cities of Service Impact Volunteering Fund, Bloomberg Philanthropies, to expand on the marathon model to include events such as the Broad Street Run, Philadelphia International Festival of the Arts, and other major public events. We look forward to showcasing Philadelphia in the national and international spotlight during events such as the World Meeting of Families coming here in September 2015 and the potential visit of Pope Francis to Philadelphia at that time. Thank you for your opportunity to testify today, council members and chair. I welcome the questions and comments from the council in response to today's testimony, and if further discussion on any of these matters is required or desired, my staff and I are pleased to meet with council members at your convenience.
Okay. Well, thank you for your testimony. This is indeed one of my favorite departments because of the interface and the intersection between arts and culture, hospitality, tourism, and the economic impact that that all brings. So I try to pay a lot of attention from afar. On page 3 of your testimony, you talk about partners, OCR partners with the hospitality industry, Philadelphia Visitors and Convention Bureau. Are there any changes in your departmental role with the convention center since the convention center is now under the management of SMG?
To continue to be a strong partner with them and to help them to leverage opportunities to get additional conventions here in the city.
And so what does that look like?
What that looks like is, sitting down with them and
Okay.
actually seeing what is potentially viable for the city to host and going after them and helping them create collateral materials or packages to see if they actually need that to make the case even stronger and more compelling.
Is that consistent? Was that practice regular as well with the former leadership? The practice of sitting down and just collaborating and talking out where the opportunities are?
I believe so.
Okay. Sustainability and trash. We have all these fabulous events, and I join the many who then look with curiosity to see how well we're doing with regards to trash and compost management after such big events like Wawa Welcome America and others. So where does your department fit in that equation or in those discussions post-event? Is that a part of the planning? Is that left strictly to streets? Just talk through what that looks like, how the issue of sustainability is addressed.
Sure. Well, we're taking a cue from the Gore-Tex Philadelphia Marathon, and since we were recognized nationally for those efforts and what we've done to actually make sure that that event was green, we're trying to incorporate the same practices throughout all the other events that we are responsible for actually producing or supporting. And so part of that is sitting down with the Office of Sustainability and figuring out what makes the most sense given the events. Every event is different, but our goal is to try to be green throughout all the events we produce.
Sure. The sponsor, are they on board? I missed that in the testimony. Are they on board going forward?
1,000%.
Okay, terrific. On page 5 of your testimony, you say, and I quote, "A formal economic impact study was not commissioned for the Made in America celebration held over Labor Day weekend." So how do you measure the economic impact? What types of factors do you consider that demonstrate it's well worth doing?
Well, we have a great baseline, which was at least $10 million from the first year. But a lot of it is just information from the hotel community and the tourism community.
Okay.
So for the second straight year, hotels were sold out.
I see. That's a good measure.
Yes.
On the prepared testimony within the promotion and marketing budget for professional services, funds are allocated for class 250 purchases for professional service. So speak to, if you will, the purpose for those funds and the scope of those services.
Sure. Professional services as defined to actually help support the department around the work that we do every single day. And again, this number is the same. I just want to remind you that we had last year. So registration, professional development services, we want to be the best at what we do. We are recognized outside of the city as the best. And so we want to continue to learn. We want to continue to support and also make the events that we are responsible for the best. So we already reached national acclaim with Wawa Welcome America. We have 3.5 million folks who now know all across the country that the city owns the 4th of July.
Right.
And so we have, the Gore-Tex Philadelphia Marathon. We are now being awarded, and we are one of the top marathons in the country. So a lot of it is making sure that our team have the right skill set to continue to do what they do.
So what's on the horizon? You've excelled in the two that you just mentioned. Is it premature to talk about DNC 2016?
Not premature. We actually sent a letter in, or the administration sent a letter in expressing interest, and the chairwoman was actually here. Debbie Washman Schultz was in town supporting her book. And so I understand that actually the mayor and both former Governor Ed Rendell expressed their interest together to the chair. So it's something that we are definitely trying and hope to pursue.
Yes, so do a lot of us.
Yeah.
Anything else any other activities on the drawing board that may be new in nature but hold potential in much the same way Wild Wild Welcome America has grown and/or the marathon?
I think we're hoping to continue to perfect the events that we have. The other event that's out there potentially is Made in America, again around the same time. And again, the big event that we have coming in 2015 is the World Meeting of Families.
So we have a little bit of time. Please just elaborate on that, if you will.
Sure. The World Meeting of Families is already coming next year, and so we are working with a number of other outside partners to try to figure out how best to highlight the city, given the fact that we will have not just the nation, but the world looking at Philadelphia as a destination and as a place that is welcoming, because it is not just a religious event. It is an event that will focus on families of all backgrounds and all faiths.